Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Hey, I'm Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful, conscious conversations on the leading edge. I have a question for you. How are you doing with those goals and those New Year's resolutions? Have you already gotten off track? Well, hey, if you even set New Year's resolutions, you're ahead of the pack. Or if you set goals for yourself, that's like you're taking that first step to going after what you want. But today I want to talk about 4 sneaky, socially acceptable ways that we sabotage ourselves. Because, think about it. We set a goal, and a lot of times we set a big goal for ourselves. It's like we shoot for the stars right off the bat. And next thing we know, a couple weeks later, we're like, I got other things to do. So that goal that we set for ourselves falls to the wayside. So I want you to think about for yourself, has this ever happened? Have you set an important goal for yourself, or had something in your life that you really valued and you wanted to achieve, or you wanted to go after, or you wanted it to happen in your life, but you found yourself putting it off, putting it to the back burner, or life just happens and everything kind of just is like, everything all of a sudden pops up and needs your attention all at once. Okay, so last week I talked about getting outside of your comfort zone, and I highly encourage, if you haven't listened to that show, watch that show, go back and check it out. Because what happens is we set these intentions, we decide that we want something, or even in the back of our mind, say as a woman, you're like, oh yeah, I want to get married and have a child. Well, if you're not really comfortable with the idea of settling down and having a child, and you're kind of feeling pulled in several different directions, maybe your career and your personal life, well, what's going to happen is if it's outside of your comfort zone, you're going to find other things to do instead. So it keeps that goal always ahead of ourselves. And that keeps us safe because we're not really stepping in. It's like we have this fantasy of what we want, this ideal goal that we want, and we keep putting it in the future, and that feels safe because we're not taking that action right now. So let's talk about these 4 sneaky, socially acceptable ways that we sabotage ourselves. The first is a lack of clarity. Now, I teach a process, it's called an envisioning process, and I help people go really in depth into creating this visual experience for themselves where they're embodying their future reality, their future self. The biggest challenge that I find people have is getting really clear about what it is that they want. Again, it's this idea of fantasy, this idea of achieving something it sounds really good, and it's, oh, this is so exciting, right? But then when we claim it and we get really clear, that's where it gets really wobbly for some of us, for a lot of us actually, because it's almost as if we declare what it is we want, then we can't change our mind. So we tend to kind of keep it this elusive or ambiguous or abstract goal that doesn't have really specific pieces to it. Like if you wanted to move somewhere in the world, and you have this idea of that I want to move, but I don't know where I want to be. Well, it's safe to kind of keep it at a distance because, well, you can't take steps to actually make that happen. And so this is just, I think, something that we all struggle with is getting that clarity and really being able to um, settle in and allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to want what we want. And so that is one thing that I want you to start becoming aware of. Do you have things in your life that you are not comfortable really getting to the nitty gritty and getting into the fine details of what that looks like? You know, because another thing that I think people that we struggle with is that we're afraid that we're going to be disappointed. So maybe or here's another thing, we don't believe that we can actually have it. So you can see how it's no wonder why we don't get clear um, on what it is that we want, because that's scary. And so this is a way that we sabotage ourselves, because without that clarity, or at least that next step, we can't move forward. So I'm curious if that's something that you yourself have struggled with. I would love to see a show of hands because I know that's been a big one for me. All right, so let's move on to the second socially acceptable way that we sabotage ourselves, and that is being addicted to being busy. So, did you know that you can actually be addicted to busyness? It is a thing. It is. It's totally a thing. So, you think about all of the ways that we can be addicted to something. We can be addicted to drugs, alcohol, playing games, those kinds of things. But you don't think busyness is something you can be addicted to. But think about this. So, have you ever seen those to-do lists that never end? Maybe you've fallen victim to that. I know I have. It's like, and here's the thing, it is great to get everything down on paper, but what happens is sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day life that we lose sight of what's really important. So here is our goal over here, but then over here we have life, and we have all of these to-dos, all of these things that we keep piling on our personal plate that keeps us busy. And what's interesting is if you can take a step back, if this feels like it resonates for you, take a step back and say, what is it that these doing being busy all the time is keeping me from? It can be keeping you from feeling your feelings. That's a really common one. And it also keeps you from needing to get clarity because, oh gosh, I don't have time. I don't have time to go do that thing that's really important. So we have this tendency to allow the external world to kind of crowd in on our lives and give us all these things to do. And quite frankly, a lot of the things that we put on our to-do list are of our own doing. So we get maybe a little obsessive about how clean our house is, or we get a little caught up in social media, and we hang out on maybe Facebook or um, Twitter, or different things like that. And what's interesting is in the business world, if you're an entrepreneur, a lot of these things, everybody says, oh yeah, you got to do all of these things. But we have to get really clear, going back to that clarity, get really clear on what it is that's going to move us towards our goal. And take a look at, am I just creating more work for myself? Am I finding things or creating, in a sense, reasons or excuses why I can't move towards this big goal, why I can't go on that trip that I've been dreaming of for, you know, 10 years, or why I can't start dating. So, these are things that we are challenged by because it does feel real that we have to focus on all of these things. I mean, life does happen, but I want you to get really clear. If you do have this never-ending to-do list where, there's always something else, there's always something to do, take a step back and say, well, am I being proactive and focusing on what it is that I want? Or am I allowing everything else to kind of dictate what I'm doing? Um, and if you have a family, I mean, this is a big challenge because, if you're maybe a stay-at-home mom, or you, like, the primary care comes to you and you find yourself having to take care of lots of people and lots of, you have to tie up loose ends for everyone, or you have to, take care of business or do the shopping or all of these little things. Um, that's not really what I'm talking about. It's where we create these to-dos it's like we feel compelled, like we have to do it, when in the bigger picture, it's not really that important. So that is a big one because, just like being addicted to, if we find ourselves being sucked into social media, or watching hours upon hours, like doing binge watching of Netflix or something, in little bits, that's not a big deal. But if it's constantly that we're finding things coming in and getting in the way of us moving towards those goals, then that's something to look at, because there is this can be an underlying fear or anxiety or something that is being covered up by this constant need to be moving and moving forward and working on that to-do list. And here's another thing. It's really curious about this. Having this addiction to busyness. It's I think a way that we feel like we're moving forward, but in actuality we're kind of just on that treadmill. Think about the little mouse on the treadmill, or the little the little spinning wheel. We're going round and round and round and round, but we're not moving forward. So that is definitely a way that we can sabotage ourselves, and certainly it's socially acceptable because we all want to seem like we have our stuff together. We're moving towards these things that we want, but we can get caught up in this cycle of needing to be busy. So I'm curious if that's something that you have been challenged by. So, okay, let's move on to the third sneaky way we sabotage ourselves. Um, and you'll notice that a lot of these, um, they kind of flow into one another. They kind of reinforce one another. So the next one is procrastination. So, I mean, we all have procrastinated something, whether it's putting off going to the DMV and getting our license renewed, or um, doing those things that we just would rather not have to do, right? But there's another way we procrastinate, and this is, I think, more on a subconscious level. We're not really aware of it. And this is when we put something off that's really important to us. We kind of put it off again to the future, kind of like what I was talking about with the first lack of clarity, that way we sabotage ourselves. So by procrastinating, it's like we say, yes, I'll do that when. So, yes, I'll start dating when I lose weight. Yes, I will market my business when my website is done. Um, I will go on that trip when I have the money. I will, and you kind of get the picture, right? So there's always something, there's always a hurdle that we put in front of ourselves before we allow ourselves to step into this thing that's important to us. And think about it. Why are we doing that? Well, it's probably because we're a little scared or fearful about that thing that we're putting out there. And so think about dating, for example. If we're always waiting to do something like lose weight, then it's easy to always keep it at a distance. It's always easy to use as an excuse to keep ourselves safe. We talked about that last week with stepping out of your comfort zone. You know, it's all about trying to keep ourselves safe. And so another example, like I said, about the website and putting your business out there. I mean, I think most of us have gone through this experience. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a new business and you're like, oh, I have to put my website together and it's got to be perfect and it's got to look a certain way. You have this image in your mind of what level you have to be at before you can do this other thing. So, and the trip. So using money, that's a really common one, I think. I think so many of us have used money as an excuse for not doing what it is that's really important to us. Using myself as an example, for years, a couple years, I was talking about I wanted to travel and take the show on the road and travel internationally and go to Europe. And in my mind, I had this belief that, oh God, I can't do it because I don't have the money. Well, if you've listened or followed the show at all, you know that I went to Europe for a month, and I the trip was fully funded by you guys, the community, and things lined up for me because I put it out there. And what I realized is, they say it's not about the money. It's never about this thing that we're using as the excuse to have what we want. So it's never about the weight. It's never about the money. So what I realized is that it was me really getting to that point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this happen. This is what's really important to me. And so this is what I'm going to be focusing all of my time and energy on. And once I did that, once I had that clarity, and so I had this really clear, strong path of this is the direction that I want to go. This is what I value and what is important to me. That's when things started opening up. So there was fear for me about, not feeling like uh, I had the money, or I didn't feel like I was supported, and I didn't feel like I could really make these travel. I didn't feel like I could go on a trip because I was believing that it was the money. But in reality, it's like you have to take that first step for the universe to kind of lay out the path for you. And that is really, really scary. It's really challenging because it's really stepping in and claiming what you want and moving in that direction despite what the external circumstances look like. And so, this is an easy way that we can sabotage ourselves because, again, we can always have this reason or excuse why we can't do it. But what I want to say is, when I went on this trip, throughout the whole journey, I stayed focused on that end result, what that goal was. And that was traveling around Europe, taking the show on the road, and experiencing having experiences that I had never had before. So, yes, there was some fear to that. But once I made that commitment, that's when the doors opened. And so, when you think of if you're waiting for something to happen, I want you to kind of step back and say, is it really about this thing that I am kind of using as the reason for why I can't do this? So that's why I say procrastination is one of those sneaky ways that we can sabotage ourselves. All right, let's go on to the next one, and that's having a cluttered life. What do I mean by that? Well, clutter can show up in so many ways. We can have physical clutter, we can have mental clutter, we can have emotional clutter. And so think about how it is that your life, is your life full of things that require your attention that pull you away from focusing on what it is that you want? If you have a lot of clutter in your house, if you have a lot of things, old things that you're just holding on to that, um, you know, everything has energy. So everything we are holding on to, there is a reason for it. And that's holding energetic space. And if you look at your surroundings and think about all of the physical things that you own, are there things that are kind of keeping you stuck in the past? Are there things that constantly pull at your attention because, say, for example, you have something that's broken in your house and you keep every day you see it and you're like, oh God, I gotta fix that, but you just keep putting it off. And so every day you're looking at this thing that's broken. Say it's a dripping, leaking faucet. You're looking at this thing, and every day you're telling yourself, oh, I need to fix that. Well, think about all that emotional energy that you are tying up with this thing that is cluttering up your life. And so, you start looking at your life, like I said, physically, like looking at your environment, metaphorically, what are these things representing in my life? Am I holding on to a bunch of things from, say, a past relationship? Am I being kind of held in the past? Or do the things around me really represent who I am now and where I want to go? Because if you are surrounding yourself with things that feed you and you love and are inspiring and represent the things that um, you have things that represent where you want to go or the places you want to go or what you want to achieve, that just energetically supports you in such a way that really nurtures you. And so, um, but you think about this, we're in a materialistic world. A lot of people, it's like, let's get more, or it's a very throwaway society. You know, oh, things don't work, let's get rid of it, or let's get, the next and best. So that's the physical aspect. And then we look at the mental. So this is kind of going back to the addiction to busyness and this mental chatter in your head that's always kind of saying, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And even if we don't have a physical to-do list, we can have this mental chatter kind of always running in our head, keeping us in this constant state of maybe anxiety or tension of moving forward or getting stuff done. And so and then there's also going back to the past and the future and are there things that are cluttering your mind mentally. Have you taken the time to mentally detox yourself from maybe something negative that happened to you? Or are you carrying that around with you? So again, this stuff eats away at you and pulls at your energy and reduces the amount of energy that you have to really focus on what it is that you want. Think about relationships, friendships, people in your life. Are there people um, that don't really support you or your goals? Are there people that you don't feel like you can be 100% honest with, and you feel like you have to maybe be someone that you're not or show up differently to make them happy? Um, think about how that just takes away from being focused on these important things. So you kind of get the theme here. I'm all about helping you focus on those important things and helping you move forward and create this life that you want. Because it's really about making yourself a priority. Um, because if you don't put yourself first, if you don't make yourself a priority, other people will come in and say, oh, well, hey, put me first. And they don't say it outright, right? They kind of do it in maybe um, little sneaky ways or very innocuous ways sometimes. But it's our job to really get clear, know what we want, and then make sure that we're creating the space to that so we can focus on that. So those are the four sneaky socially acceptable ways that we can sabotage ourselves. And so I want to check in with you, and I would love to hear if they resonate, if there's one that stood out for you, if this brought up anything for you. I would love to hear about it. Okay, woo! Yeah, so let's check in with, see if there are any comments. Let's see. Yeah. Hey, I love that you guys show up live, because, this is a co-created conversation. So as I do these shows, I tap into your energy, and you being here just adds to, it's like I get to like play in the energy field and kind of tap into maybe what some of the things that you're experiencing. And I always, of course, use my own self as uh, for examples and stuff. I often say I throw myself under the bus. But it's the thing, we're all in this together. We are on this journey as humans, and really, the more we can learn from each other and help each other succeed, and support each other in really becoming our most authentic self, um, it just betters us all, because we can really relax into, or learn to become comfortable relaxing into who we are, and our uniqueness, our brilliance, because we all have something really awesome to share. And only once we feel comfortable enough to settle in and claim that and really understand who we are, that's the only time that we're able to really share that on a big scale for for all of us here on the planet. It's like that ripple effect, the little rock that's thrown in the pond of water creates those ripples out. And so, I love spending this time with you to, just throw the little pebble in there and see what happens. How does this ripple out for you, and and help you maybe have some new awareness or insights or anything like that. Yeah, so let me see here. All right. Let's see. Heidi says, as a fellow entrepreneur, mind clutter is A big one. Yes, even though I meditate daily, I can flood my mind with bits and pieces of anxiety that can bury productivity. Totally. I mean, especially, like I said last week, talking about getting outside of your comfort zone, anytime we're trying to step out and do something bigger or what's next for us or really grow, it really can cause that anxiety. And so it's only normal. And that's why these are socially acceptable. We're all doing it. We're all trying to do our best. And it is scary or it's anxiety provoking to do these things where we're really stepping outside of our comfort zone. And so, I commend all of you guys that despite these feelings of fear or anxiety that you're willing to do it anyway, because it's like that you're here for a reason and there's something that you are here to express, or there is a way for you to show up in the world and not just get from point A to point B and live your life, but that there's something more. And so I commend you for being on this journey. And, we're all together, just kind of making our way, bumbling through, trying to do the best we can. So now I encourage you, if you are loving these conversations, I would encourage you to become an Awakened Goddess Show member, because what happens is now now that we're done here, I'm going to hop on over to the Awakened Goddess Insiders private group, and I'm going to take this conversation deeper. And so this is an awesome way to really dig in. If you're ready to say, you're gonna cut through the bull crap. Try not to swear on the show, but you want to just cut through it, and you are really at that place where you're ready to step in and do the work and get through or move through any challenges or limiting beliefs. If you're ready to move through that, I highly encourage you to become an Awakened Goddess Show member, because we're going to take this conversation deeper. I'm going to give more tips, and I do live coaching, and we do that in the group. And then that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other incredible benefits. So I would love to see you there. There's a link there. It's theawakenedgoddess.com/join. Thanks so much for joining me. It's great to have you here. All right. Good luck and much love.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.